What's up, everybody? Tony here from GoodStory for your July market update. If it's your first market update, we take a look at actually the previous month, so in this case, June. We've got our good friend Adolfo here from Referral Mortgages today to kind of walk us through this. And you know what? We're just going to chat about what's going on, what we're seeing, and maybe some predictions for where the market's headed for the rest of 2024. So Adolfo, welcome.
Good to be here.
Sales activity for the month of July, just over 1,400, so about 1,429 homes. Numbers are one thing, but I think it's better to talk about what we're actually seeing in the market. Adolfo, since this is kind of our first market update since we saw the first rate increase from the Bank of Canada this year, I want to ask you, what have you seen in terms of files on your desks? Are there more people getting pre-approved? Are you seeing more deals get pumped through? What's going on?
Well, the market's moving. It's since that rate decrease that happened of 0.25 from prime, that day and probably that week, I can speak for myself, but we had multiple phone calls just to know where people would qualify, the difference of it, what was going on, what was happening. In reality, it's a difference. It is a drop, which is headed in the right direction, you could say, but it's not a significant difference to make a significant difference in their qualification. Approximately, it's about $100 a month that people would be saving. So it is some significance, but it's not as incremental compared to where we started.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we had some calls this week and sellers saying, rates are coming down. Why haven't prices automatically, shot up like we did see during, the beginning of COVID. I actually read something interesting this week. Typically, the market reacts oppositely for a first rate reduction. Like typically, you kind of see prices go down before they tend to go up. I don't know how true that is in the numbers we've seen this month. The median price across the city of Ottawa was $640,000, and that's actually down just a slight bit from June 2023. So the market is moving, transactions are happening. We're not seeing crazy, bidding wars. Even people that are kind of held onto those prices that we saw throughout the pandemic, they're kind of coming into the realization that if your price is wrong, if you're not priced appropriately, competitively, and you don't show the best out of everyone else on your street or all your competition, your house is not going to sell. Buyers have a lot of choice right now, and I think that kind of corresponds with what you're saying about people are getting their numbers right, but they're not jumping out to say, I got to buy something immediately. No. Buyers that I'm working with, they see something and they might really like it, and then they know, they're like, it seems high though compared to this sale, and they're waiting it out. They're saying, there'll probably be another one come up next week. So there's not that sense of urgency that we saw with rates coming down last year.
The gates didn't open, let's just say that, with that first rate decrease. I feel like it's going to take a couple more for it to have an impact on demand. People have choices right now.
100%.
I feel like they're still on the fence, and hopefully there's more rate drops coming down and we get more of that. But it also depends on is it going to spark up the market again in terms of prices, right?
I mean, I think the rates have to come down. I think people were very bullish on it coming down, and then they were holding off towards March, April, May. People were like, oh, maybe they won't do it till later in the year. But I remember January sitting here being like, they're going to come down first thing in the beginning of the year, and it never happened. And now that one happened last month, I'm seeing people kind of return to that idea of July is going to be a cut. July 24th, we're going to see another cut. I don't know. Are you seeing that? Are you having those conversations?
Things happen so last minute. So the June cut happened literally. Everyone was saying the week before, oh no, it's going to stay. It's going to stay.
No cut.
Friday numbers came up. By Monday, everybody was saying it's going to come down, and it came down. July inflation numbers came up. It wasn't as great as everybody was expecting. So what they're saying for July is that it'll probably stay. So we'll see.
Interesting.
It's hard to tell. And
I think that's it. I mean, the sentiment is people think cut, and they're like, okay, well, if another cut is coming in July, if I'm hearing whispers, if I see it on the news, if I see it on another podcast or channel or whatever, they're saying I'm going to wait. And I think that's exactly what I was just referring to in terms of the buyers saying, like, you know what, we're just going to wait. We're going to see what happens. If the rates come down, that could be good for us. You know, I think it's important to note that the Bank of Canada, those interest rates that they're referring to directly affect the variable rates, not the fixed rates that we're seeing 99% of people get into these days, right? Like I go out on a limb here and say, like, the fixed rates are much more competitive for a buyer, especially in an unaffordable housing market, to choose rather than a variable rate.
Yeah, especially if it's like you need every single dollar to qualify for a certain mortgage or a certain property. Fixed rates are lower than what variable rates are right now.
Yeah, so someone who's taking a variable rate is likely just, they're in a position where they can afford it.
Yes.
They can afford to take that gamble that's going to come down over time. You know, from what we've seen, you know, the number of sales, 1,400, it's pretty steady of what we've seen all year long. We're not seeing, like, we didn't even see like a crazy spike over spring. If anything, now we're seeing much more inventory come to market. So for the month of June, we saw 2.5 months of inventory. And what that means, it would take 2.5 months from today, if no other homes came to market, for all the homes currently listed on MLS to be sold. That's actually up from last month as well, just a little bit, about 0.1, but it's still showing that listings are coming up and they're not being absorbed really rapidly. So even if you're seeing pre-approvals, you know, even an uptick, we're still not seeing that convert to sales yet.
Not yet.
So, I mean, let's talk a little bit long term then. Like, what do we see July, August, September? Like, do you think if we see something in July, if it's a decrease or even if it's just a hold, maybe we see some more activity? Because, like I said, I think buyers just have so much choice right now.
And I think that's the case. Like, they just want to wait for the right property. Buyers have the opportunity to wait for the right property. They don't have to jump into just the first one that they see or the first one that they think is right. So yeah, I would say it'll just depend on where rates go, where the market kind of follows.
Yeah.
The bond yields to the bond market, it's important to follow too, just because that's where the fixed rates are kind of rates are taken from. So it's just a matter of, like, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's hard to predict.
Yeah, fair. So we said median sale price, 640,000. We actually have median days on market or 18 days on market, which is slightly ticking up as well. You know, the home prices have kind of flatlined from what we've seen. We're not seeing any kind of crazy spike month to month. I mean, what's your take on that?
For the median price, it's 640, as you mentioned. The minimum down payment for that would be about $39K, which gives somebody a mortgage of 601. In terms of the rate and what we kind of see, like, oh, it's going to spark up demand or not, the difference on that 0.25 was only about $93 per month in terms of monthly payment for that mortgage amount. If there's another drop of 0.25, that's another $93, $92. And it kind of feels like it's every 0.25, it's about 100, give or take. For that mortgage amount,
sure.
Like 601 of a mortgage amount, and we're just basing it on that median price.
So, I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense, and it's a good kind of benchmark for going forward, especially given it's a pretty good average. I mean, if you're looking at a nice townhome in Ottawa, like, you're probably going to be in that 650 range, which is what most people, young families, first-time buyers, are kind of looking to get into at. So $100 a month is actually goes a long way in terms of affordability with monthly payments the way they are, car payments, credit card payments, whatever that may be. That $100, that extra $90 can go a long way.
It goes a long way in terms of monthly liquidity and affordability, like you mentioned. But in terms of the qualification, it doesn't
affect it too much.
Not as much. Yeah.
So it's like, in a nutshell, people think it's going to increase their affordability, but I guess what we're saying is that it's not necessarily on a purchase price it'll increase your affordability. It just makes your monthly payment a little bit more manageable.
Correct.
That's a fair thing to say.
Well, you have more money, less money here that you have to spend, more money to spend maybe somewhere or save at that point.
Fair.
More for the groceries, gas.
I want to mention that we use median versus average. We use the median on our team because we feel it's a better representation of the actual prices that people are seeing. Average takes into account all sales across the entire MLS board in Ottawa, meaning, if we have some outlier sales at 2 million, 4 million, 6 million, it's really going to bump that average price up, which is not going to be a proper representation of, what the true median price is. You guys, so just to wrap it all up, like I said, we saw about 1,400 sales in Ottawa for the month of June. not much of an uptick there in terms of sales or in price. So, things are kind of chugging along. We haven't seen decreases. We're just kind of at the same steady pace. What we did see an increase in was inventory hitting the market. We saw that almost 5% more than we saw last month. So people are still trying to sell their homes. Buyers just have a lot of choice. So they're not necessarily under a lot of pressure to pull the trigger on something. Even if it's the perfect home, they might say, you know what, we're just going to wait to see what happens. And whether that means wait for interest rates to come down or wait to see, if a new and better home hits the market, the sense of urgency just isn't there. I think that's going to continue on into the summer. I think July and August will be a lot of the same. Maybe when the tides turn in September, we usually see a kind of shift in the way people's sentiment is towards real estate. They're a little bit more focused on the market and making that choice and that move before Christmas. Whereas right now during the summer, a lot of people just go on cruise control. They want to enjoy their summer with their families, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not atypical of the market. It's just, we're still so hung up on that go now that we saw over the last 3 to 4 years. So steady as she goes is what I would say for the month of June. And we'll be watching it closely, and we'll definitely check in with you next month to let you know what's going on. Thanks, Adolfo.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bank of Canada can increase rates quickly. They just won't decrease them as quickly. So it's always good to remember that.
Real nail biter.
Yeah.